My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I gripped the steering wheel, staring at the house that held my son prisoner. 5 years. 5 years since I'd last seen River's face, heard his laugh, felt his arms around me in a hug. And now, after driving 620 miles straight from Seattle to Denver, I sat frozen in my rental car, terrified of what would happen when I knocked on that door. The wrapped gift box on the passenger seat seemed to mock me. Inside was River's father's watch, the Rolex his dad had worn every day until cancer stole him from us 3 years ago. River didn't even know his father had died. She wouldn't let me tell him. Storm Morrison. Even thinking her name, it made my chest tighten with rage and grief. I forced myself to remember the last time I'd seen my son. It was Thanksgiving, 5 years ago. Storm had been screaming at me in my own kitchen, calling me toxic, manipulative, a narcissist, words that cut deep because they were so far from the truth. River had stood there, silent, his eyes vacant, as if he wasn't really present. When I'd reached for him, begging him to talk to me, Storm had grabbed his arm. "We're leaving," she announced, "and we're never coming back. River doesn't need a mother who tries to control his life." "River, please," I sobbed. "This isn't you. This isn't what your father would want." "Don't you dare bring up his father," Storm had shrieked. "You don't get to use a dead man to manipulate him." Except his father wasn't dead then. He was in the hospital, fighting for his life, wanting nothing more than to see his son one last time. River never came. Storm made sure of that.
If you're watching this, let me ask you something. Have you ever watched someone you love become a stranger overnight? If you've ever felt that heartbreak, please subscribe and share your story in the comments below. Sometimes knowing we're not alone is the only thing that keeps us going. I took a deep breath and grabbed the gift box. The walk to the front door felt like miles. The house was nice, too nice. A craftsman-style home in an upscale Denver neighborhood. Storm had always been good at spending other people's money. I wondered how much of River's inheritance from his grandmother she'd already burned through. My finger hovered over the doorbell. What if he didn't want to see me? What if Storm had poisoned him against me so thoroughly that my own son would look at me with hatred? No, I'd driven too far to turn back now. I pressed the bell. Footsteps approached from inside. Quick, sharp steps I recognized immediately. Not River's, hers. The door swung open, and there she stood, Storm Morrison, looking exactly as I remembered. Bottle blonde hair, calculating green eyes, that practiced smile that never quite reached those eyes. The smile died the instant she saw me. "What the hell are you doing here?" Her voice was low, dangerous. "I need to see my son," I said, proud that my voice didn't shake. "It's been 5 years, Storm." She moved to block the doorway completely, her manicured nails gripping the doorframe. "He doesn't want to see you. Leave. Now." "Please, Storm. It's his birthday next week. I just want to—" "I said leave!" Movement caught my eye over her shoulder. There, in the hallway, stood River. My heart shattered. He was thin, so thin. His once bright eyes looked dull, confused. His clothes hung off his frame like he was a child playing dress-up. "River," I called out, my voice breaking. "River, sweetheart, it's Mom." He tilted his head, squinting at me like he was trying to remember something important. "Mom?" Storm whirled around. "Go back to bed, honey. You're not feeling well, remember?" "But—" "Get out!" Storm spun back to face me, her pretty face twisted with fury. "He's not your son. Not anymore. I'm his family now. You're nothing to him. Nothing." She slammed the door, so hard, the wreath fell off. I stood there, frozen,
My son's confused face burned into my mind. Then I heard voices from inside. "Who was that?" River's voice, faint and uncertain. "Just some crazy woman," Storm replied, her tone switching to sickly sweet. "Don't worry about it, baby. Come on, let's get you back to bed. You need your medication." Medication? What medication? I pounded on the door with both fists. "River! River, it's Mom! Please, I need to talk to you! River!" Curtains twitched in the windows of neighboring houses. A woman walking her dog stopped to stare. I didn't care. I kept pounding, screaming my son's name until my throat went raw. "I'm calling the police!" Storm's voice shrieked from inside. "You crazy bitch! I'm calling the police right now!" "Good! Call them! Let's see what they think about you keeping a son from his mother!" But even as I said it, a cold dread settled in my stomach. Something was very, very wrong here. River's confusion, his appearance, the way Storm spoke to him like he was a child. What had she done to my son? The sound of sirens in the distance made my blood run cold. As they grew louder, I realized I was about to find out just how deep Storm's control went, and I had a terrible feeling I wasn't going to like the answer. The police cruiser pulled up just as I'd stumbled back to my car, my legs barely holding me up. Officer Martinez stepped out, a middle-aged man with kind eyes that reminded me of River's father. Those eyes turned cold when Storm burst out of the house, running barefoot across the lawn like some tragic movie heroine. "Officer, thank God you're here!" She clutched at his arm, tears streaming down her face. Where had those tears come from? Just minutes ago, she'd been snarling at me like a rabid animal. "This woman won't leave us alone. She's been stalking us for months." "That's a lie." I stepped forward, but Officer Martinez held up a hand. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down, one at a time." He turned to Storm. "You called in the disturbance?" "Yes." Storm's voice trembled perfectly. She should have been an actress. "This is Nova Sterling. She's my husband's estranged mother. We have a restraining order against her, but she keeps showing up, frightening us, making threats." "What restraining order?" My voice cracked. "I haven't seen my son in 5 years. I drove 620 miles from Seattle because you're obsessed." Storm pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "Here, officer, the restraining order. Filed 2 years ago after she threatened to kidnap River." I watched in horror as Officer Martinez examined whatever she was showing him on her phone. This couldn't be happening. I'd never threatened anyone. I'd never even been to Denver before today. "Mrs. Sterling," the officer's voice had changed, become formal. "I'm going to need you to step away from the property." "But I'm his mother," the words tore from my throat. "Please, just ask him. Let me talk to River for 1 minute." "He doesn't want to see you," Storm interjected, pressing a tissue to her eyes. "He traumatized you so badly, he had to seek therapy. The doctor said no contact was essential for his recovery." Therapy? Recovery from what? From loving his mother? "Officer, please." I was begging now, my dignity forgotten. "Something's wrong. My son, he looked sick. He didn't even recognize me at first. She's done something to him." "Ma'am." Officer Martinez's hand moved to his radio. "You need to leave now, or I'll have to arrest you for violating a restraining order. This is your only warning." I looked back at the house. Rivers stood at an upstairs window, his palm pressed against the glass. Even from this distance, I could see the confusion in his eyes. He was mouthing something. Was it Mom? "I'm going," I whispered, my heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. "I'm going." I drove 3 blocks before I had to pull over, sobbing so hard I couldn't see. My baby, my River. What had she done to my baby? A tap on my window made me jump. An elderly Asian woman stood there, concern creasing her weathered face. I rolled down the window, trying to wipe my tears. "You're River's mother, aren't you?" she said softly. "I recognize you from the photos." "What photos?" She glanced nervously back toward the house.
The ones Storm burned in the backyard last month. I'm Mrs. Chen. I live next door. She pulled something from her pocket, a partially burned photograph. The edges were charred, but I could still see it clearly. River and me at his college graduation, both of us laughing at something his father had said behind the camera. You saved this? My hands shook as I took the damaged photo. I saved what I could. She burned boxes of them. Albums, letters, everything. Mrs. Chen leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Your son, he's not well. She won't let him leave the house. My blood turned to ice. What do you mean? I haven't seen him outside in months. Sometimes I hear him at night calling out. She tells everyone he has anxiety and that he can't handle being around people. Mrs. Chen's eyes darted nervously. But I've lived next to anxious people before. This is different. Different how? He gets confused, forgets things. Last month, I saw him in the backyard and he asked me what year it was. When I told him, he looked terrified. Said that couldn't be right because... She paused, biting her lip. Because what? Because he said his mother's funeral was in 2023. He said he remembered the funeral, remembered the casket, the flowers. He started crying, saying he missed you so much.
The world tilted. I gripped the steering wheel to keep from fainting. But I'm alive. I'm right here. How could he think? She's a nurse, Mrs. Chen said quietly. Did you know that? Storm. She worked at the psychiatric hospital before she quit to take care of River full-time. A psychiatric nurse with access to medications, with knowledge of how to manipulate someone's mind. Oh, God, I covered my mouth, fighting the urge to vomit. Oh, my God, she's drugging him. She's keeping him sedated and confused, and I've suspected for months, Mrs. Chen admitted. But what could I do? She's his wife. She has power of attorney. She shows all the right papers whenever anyone asks questions. Power of attorney? How? River would never. Maybe not in his right mind, Mrs. Chen said meaningfully. She pressed a piece of paper into my hand. This is my number. And there's something else. My grandson works at Denver General. 3 months ago, River was brought in by ambulance. Overdose, they said. Accidental. But my grandson said the levels in his blood, they were consistent with long-term poisoning, not a single incident. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. Is he going to die? Is she killing him? Slowly, Mrs. Chen said. I think she's killing him slowly, making him forget who he is, who loves him, until all he has is her. A door slammed somewhere nearby. Mrs. Chen straightened quickly. I have to go, but please, don't give up on him. He needs his real mother now more than ever. She hurried away, leaving me clutching a burned photo and a phone number, my mind racing. Storm wasn't just keeping River from me. She was erasing me from his memory. She was stealing his mind, his past, his entire identity. And she'd convinced him I was already dead. I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers and called the only person I trusted completely. Grace, I sobbed when my sister answered. I need your help. I need a lawyer. The best lawyer you know. Storm is killing River, and I'm going to stop her if it's the last thing I do. Because a mother's love doesn't end with restraining orders or false memories, or even the belief that she's dead. A mother's love fights, and I was ready for war.
Grace's law office in downtown Denver felt like a war room. Papers covered every surface. Medical records, legal documents, bank statements. My sister had worked through the night, and her usually perfect appearance was disheveled, her eyes blazing with the same fury I felt. Nova, what I'm about to show you, She paused, running a hand through her hair. It's worse than we thought. How can it be worse? I was running on 3 hours of sleep and pure adrenaline. She's convinced my son I'm dead. She's drugging him. What could be worse? Grace slid a folder across the desk. River hasn't been to work in 3 months. His company thinks he resigned to deal with family trauma. Look at the resignation letter. I stared at the email printout. It was River's account, but the writing... This isn't how River writes. He would never use these phrases. Because he didn't write it. Storm did. Grace pulled out another document. His social media, she's been posting as him. Happy couple photos, vacation snapshots, all fake. The metadata shows they were taken at different times, some edited. My stomach churned as I scrolled through River's Facebook, post after post about his wonderful wife, their perfect life, how grateful he was that she helped him through the loss of his mother. One post made me gasp. Today marks 2 years since Mom passed. Storm has been my rock through this grief. I don't know what I'd do without her. The date was 6 months ago. According to Storm's twisted narrative, I'd been dead for 2 years. There's more, Grace said grimly. Bank accounts, all transferred to joint ownership, then to her name only. His inheritance from your mother? Gone. The retirement fund his father set up? Liquidated. She's systematically stolen everything. But how? River's smart. He wouldn't just... Not if he was in his right mind, which brings us to the medical power of attorney, signed during his first breakdown, likely induced by whatever cocktail of drugs she was feeding him. A knock interrupted us. Grace's assistant showed in a man in his 30s, tall and athletic, with worried eyes. I recognized him immediately. Marcus? Oh my God, Marcus!
River's best friend since college pulled me into a tight hug. Mrs. S., I'm so sorry. I should have called you sooner, but Storm, she made me think you two had reconciled, that you were okay with everything. Reconciled? Marcus, she told River I was dead. His face went white. What? No, she told me you had dementia, that River couldn't handle seeing you deteriorate, so they had decided on no contact. Dementia? I laughed bitterly. I'm 58 years old and sharp as a tack. What else did she tell you? Marcus sank into a chair, looking sick. God, I'm an idiot. It all makes sense now. The isolation, the excuses, the way River changed. Tell me everything, Grace said, her lawyer voice activated. From the beginning. Marcus rubbed his face. Storm was perfect at first. You know how it is. Charming, attentive, everything River could want. But after they married, things shifted, slowly. She'd create conflicts between River and his friends, twist words, manufacture drama. I'd say something innocent, and she'd convince River I was insulting him or her. Classic isolation tactics, Grace murmured, taking notes. The last time I saw him, Marcus' voice cracked, 6 months ago, I'd confronted Storm about the way she was treating him. Nothing physical, but the emotional manipulation, the gaslighting. River called me the next day furious, said I was trying to destroy his marriage because I was jealous. That doesn't sound like River, I protested. It wasn't River. Not really. He was different. Slurred speech, unfocused eyes. I thought he was drunk, but now... Marcus looked at me with haunted eyes. She was drugging him even then, wasn't she? We think so, Grace confirmed. What happened next? He cut me off, blocked my number, social media, everything. But Mrs. S., the worst part? He apologized before he hung up. Said, I'm sorry for choosing you over Storm. I won't make that mistake again. He sounded scared, genuinely scared. I pressed my hands to my mouth, tears streaming, my brave, strong son reduced to a frightened shell of himself. I hired a private investigator, I managed to say. He found something at Denver General. Grace nodded. The overdose. We have those records. But that's not all. I pulled out the PI report with trembling hands. River's been in the ER 7 times in 2 years, each time with Storm by his side playing the devoted wife. Falls downstairs, accidental medication mix-ups, food poisoning, Always just serious enough to require treatment, never quite enough to trigger a full investigation.
Jesus, Marcus breathed. She's torturing him. She's killing him slowly, I corrected, making it look like accidents, like he's fragile and needs her constant care. And the worst part, the hospital notes show patient confusion and memory issues every single time. Whatever she's giving him, it's destroying his mind. Grace's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and went pale. Nova, the PI just sent this. River's credit card was just used at Walgreens, picking up prescriptions. Storm's keeping him drugged, I said. No. Grace turned her phone toward us. The security footage. Look who's picking them up. My heart stopped. There, on the grainy footage, was River, shuffling through the pharmacy like an old man. But that wasn't what made my blood freeze. It was what he was picking up. Haldol, Ativan, Risperdal, all powerful antipsychotics and sedatives. Those medications, Marcus looked sick. My mom's a psychiatrist. Those are for severe mental illness, schizophrenia, psychosis. In the wrong doses, or for someone who doesn't need them, they cause confusion, memory loss, physical weakness, Grace finished. Everything River's experiencing. I stood abruptly, rage flooding through me. We're going back to that house, right now, with police, paramedics, whatever it takes. My phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Sterling? A woman's panicked voice. This is Mrs. Chen. You need to come quickly. There's an ambulance at River's house. They're taking him away. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. Marcus caught it, putting it on speaker. What happened? I don't know. Storm came running out screaming that he'd collapsed. But Mrs. Sterling, I saw him this morning through the window. He was trying to use the phone, and she caught him. They argued. I heard him say your name, Nova. Then nothing until the ambulance. I was already running for the door, Grace and Marcus behind me. My son had tried to call me. After 2 years of believing I was dead, something had broken through Storm's lies, and he'd tried to reach out. And now he was paying the price. Hold on, River, I whispered as we raced through Denver traffic. Mommy's coming. Just hold on. But in my heart, I knew we might already be too late. Storm had played her final card, and my son's life hung in the balance. The war I'd declared was about to reach its climax, and I could only pray that love would be stronger than whatever poison ran through River's veins. Because if I lost him now, knowing how hard he'd tried to remember me, to reach me, I'd never forgive myself. The hospital loomed ahead, and with it the final battle for my son's life.
The emergency room erupted into chaos the moment I burst through the doors. Storm stood at the admissions desk, still playing her role, tears streaming, hands wringing, the perfect picture of a devoted wife in crisis. My husband just collapsed, she was telling the nurse. He's been struggling with his mental health since his mother died. I think he might have taken too many of his medications. Liar! The word tore from my throat before I could stop it. Storm whirled around, her tearful facade cracking for just a second, long enough for me to see the cold calculation in her eyes. Then the mask slipped back on. Oh my God, she gasped, pointing at me. That's her, the woman who's been stalking us. Security, someone call security. I'm his mother, I roared, rushing toward her. Marcus grabbed my arm, holding me back. You told him I was dead. You poisoned my son. Ma'am, you need to calm down. A security guard materialized beside us. She's delusional, Storm said quickly, clutching the nurse's arm. She has dementia. She doesn't accept that River doesn't want to see her. Please, my husband is dying, and she's making this about her. Where is he? I demanded. Where's River? He's being evaluated, the nurse said carefully, looking between us. Are you family? I'm his wife, Storm said firmly. I have medical power of attorney. She's nobody. She has a restraining order against her. Grace stepped forward, every inch the lawyer. I'm Grace Sterling, attorney and River Calloway's aunt. We have reason to believe Mrs. Morrison has been systematically poisoning Mr. Calloway and holding him against his will. We need to see him immediately. That's ridiculous. Storm's voice pitched higher. How dare you? Room 7, Mrs. Chen's voice cut through the chaos. She stood by the elevator, having somehow slipped past everyone. I saw them take him to room 7. I didn't think. I just ran. Stop her! Storm screamed behind me. I dodged a nurse, slipped past a gurney, my heart pounding as I searched for room 7. There, the door was open. I burst through and froze.
River lay on the hospital bed, so still, so pale. Monitors beeped around him, IV lines feeding into his two thin arms, but his eyes were open, staring at the ceiling with that terrible confusion I'd seen at the house. "River," I whispered, approaching slowly. "Baby, it's me. It's Mom." His head turned toward me, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw recognition flicker. "Mom?" His voice was so weak, so broken. "But you're dead. I went to your funeral. Storm said..." "No, baby." I grabbed his hand, tears streaming down my face. "I'm right here. I've always been here. Storm lied to you. She's been lying about everything. I can't." He squirms his eyes shut, pain etching across his features. "My head, everything's fuzzy. I tried to call someone today, a number I remembered, but Storm said it was disconnected because you were gone. You tried to call me?" My heart shattered all over again. "Oh, River, my number never changed. She's been keeping us apart." "Step away from him." Storm burst into the room, security guards flanking her. Her perfect mask had finally slipped completely, revealing the monster underneath. "He's my husband. Get away from him, you crazy bitch." "No." River's voice was weak but clear. "No, Storm." Everyone froze. River was struggling to sit up, his eyes fixed on his wife with dawning horror. "You told me she died. You showed me pictures of the funeral, but she's here. She's alive. Why would you..." "Baby, you're confused." Storm rushed toward him, but River flinched back. "Don't touch me." The words came out stronger. "The pills, all those pills you give me, they make everything fuzzy. Make me sleep all the time. Make me believe things that aren't true. Mr. Calloway?" A doctor entered, followed by Grace and Marcus. "I'm Dr. Martinez. We've run your blood work. Sir, the levels of antipsychotic medications in your system are dangerously high. Have you been taking..." "She gives them to me," River interrupted, pointing at Storm with a shaking hand. "Every day. Says they're vitamins, supplements, anxiety medication, but they make me forget things, make me sleep all the time, make me believe things that aren't true." "River, honey, you're having an episode." Storm tried again, but her voice had lost its sweetness. "Remember what Dr. Phillips said about your paranoia?" "There is no Dr. Phillips." Marcus stepped forward. "You made him up, just like you made up Nova's death, just like you made up everything."
Dr. Martinez was studying River's chart, his expression growing more concerned. "Mr. Calloway, these medications, Haldol, Risperdal, Ativan, they're not prescribed by any doctor at this hospital. Who's been giving them to you?" "Her." River's voice was stronger now, anger breaking through the chemical fog. "My wife. My devoted wife who burned all my photos, who told me my mother was dead, who wouldn't let me leave the house because I was too fragile." "I want a psychiatric evaluation," Storm demanded. "He's clearly having a psychotic break." "Actually," Dr. Martinez interrupted, "I think we need to involve the police. Mr. Calloway shows signs of long-term chemical restraint. This is a criminal matter." "You can't prove anything," Storm hissed, her facade finally crumbling completely. "I'm his wife. I have power of attorney. He gave me control because he wanted me to take care of him." "I signed those papers when I was drugged," River shouted, then swayed. The effort too much. I caught him, holding my son for the first time in 5 years. It's okay. I've got you. Mommy's got you. Mrs. Morrison, 2 police officers stood in the doorway. We need to ask you some questions about the prescriptions found in your home. Grace smiled grimly. Did I mention the private investigator found Storm's previous married name? Storm Whitlock? Her first husband died of an accidental overdose 5 years ago. Her second husband is currently in a psychiatric facility, convinced his entire family died in a fire that never happened. The room went silent. Storm's face had gone white. You can't prove... Your fingerprints are on the prescription bottles. Bottles for medications that were reported stolen from Denver Psychiatric Hospital, where you used to work. Storm lunged for River then, her hands like claws. He's mine. I made him mine. You can't take him. The officers restrained her, dragging her out as she screamed. He's nothing without me. Nothing. I'm the only one who loves him. He'll come back. He always comes back. And then she was gone, her screams echoing down the hospital corridor. River collapsed against me, sobbing like the little boy I once comforted after nightmares. Mom, I'm so sorry. I believed her. I believed you were dead. How could I forget my own mother? Shh. I stroked his hair, my own tears falling freely. It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. Dad, is Dad really...
I closed my eyes, holding him tighter. Yes, baby. 3 years ago. He wanted to see you so badly at the end, but we couldn't find you. His sobs shook his entire body. I missed his funeral because of her. I missed saying goodbye because of her lies. But you're here now, I said fiercely. You're alive and you're here, and we're going to get through this together. Dr. Martinez cleared his throat gently. Mr. Calloway, we need to admit you. The detox process from these medications will be difficult, and you'll need therapy to process what's happened. River nodded, but didn't let go of my hand. Will you stay? He asked me, sounding like a lost child. Please, Mom. I'm scared she'll come back. I'm scared I'll forget again. I'm not going anywhere, I promised. Never again. Marcus stepped forward. None of us are, buddy. We're all here. 3 months later, I stood with River at his father's grave. The detox had been hell, the therapy ongoing, but my son was returning to himself piece by piece. Storm was awaiting trial for attempted murder, fraud, and false imprisonment. Her 2 previous victims had been found, one dead, one permanently damaged. River had been lucky, if you could call any of this luck. He placed the watch, his father's watch, on the headstone with trembling hands. I'm sorry I missed so many years, Dad. I'm sorry I wasn't here. He would understand, I said softly. He'd just be grateful you're here now. River nodded, leaning against me. We stood in comfortable silence, 2 survivors of a war we'd never asked to fight. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and went pale. What is it? I asked, though dread was already pooling in my stomach. He showed me the text from an unknown number. She's not done with you yet. S. She's in jail, I said firmly. She can't hurt you anymore. But River's hands were shaking as he deleted the message. She told me once that she'd always own a piece of me, that even if I left, I'd never really be free. That's the drugs talking, the trauma. No, Mom. He looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. She has followers, other nurses from the hospital. She called them her sisters, women who understood that sometimes you had to save men from their families. My blood ran cold. River,
Why didn't you tell the police? Another buzz. This time a photo. Our car in the cemetery parking lot, taken from a distance. We need to go, River said urgently. Now. As we hurried to the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Storm might be behind bars, but her poison ran deeper than just the drugs she'd forced into my son. We'll face it together, I said as we drove away, checking the mirrors for any sign of pursuit. Whatever comes next, we face it together. River nodded, but his knuckles were white as he gripped the door handle. Storm Morrison might be gone, but her shadow still loomed over us. The war for my son wasn't over. It had just begun.
8 months have passed since that terrifying day at the hospital, and I've learned truths about love, family, and survival that I wish I'd understood sooner. As I sit here watching River slowly rebuild his life, attending therapy, reconnecting with friends, learning to trust again, I want to share what this nightmare taught me. Not just for other mothers who might face similar battles, but for anyone who loves someone deeply enough to fight for them. First, let me tell you the hardest truth. Love alone isn't always enough to protect the people we cherish. I loved River with every fiber of my being. I raised him with devoted care, celebrated his victories, comforted his defeats. But all that love couldn't shield him from a predator who understood how to weaponize trust. Storm didn't attack our bond directly. She was far too clever for that. Instead, she wrapped herself around him like a python, squeezing slowly until he couldn't remember how to breathe without her permission. The warning signs were there, hidden in plain sight. The gradual isolation from family, the sudden personality changes dismissed as growth or maturity, the way conversations became scripted, how his vibrant spirit dimmed to a flicker. But here's what haunts me. I saw these signs and doubted myself. Society tells us to respect our adult children's choices, to step back, to let them live their lives. We're warned against being controlling mothers, helicopter parents, interfering mother-in-laws. So I stepped back when every instinct screamed to step forward. If this story teaches you anything, let it be this. Trust your gut when it tells you something is wrong. That uncomfortable feeling at family dinners, the way your child seems different, the partner who's just a little too perfect, too attentive, too involved, these aren't paranoid fantasies. They're your subconscious picking up danger signals your conscious mind wants to rationalize away. But understanding the signs isn't enough. We need to talk about why predators like Storm succeed. They don't target the weak. They target the strong, the successful, the loved. River wasn't vulnerable because he lacked anything. He was vulnerable because he had everything. A loving family, financial security, a trusting heart. Storm saw these not as strengths, but as resources to exploit. She knew that someone who'd been deeply loved would crave that feeling if it was suddenly withdrawn and replaced with conditional affection. The cycle of abuse in relationships isn't just physical. What Storm did to River, the gaslighting, the chemical restraint, the manufactured reality, is a form of torture that leaves no visible bruises. She convinced him his mother was dead not through force, but through careful manipulation of his drugged mind. She isolated him not with locks, but with shame and confusion. This is why so many victims don't leave, don't speak up, don't fight back. By the time they realize they're trapped, they no longer trust their own perception of reality.
For the parents reading this, wondering how to protect adult children without overstepping, here's what I've learned. Staying connected isn't controlling. It's vital. Regular contact, even when resisted, creates a lifeline. Document changes, trust your instincts, and don't let anyone convince you that caring too much is a flaw. If River and I had established a weekly call, if I'd insisted on regular visits, if I'd pushed past Storm's barriers earlier, perhaps those lost years could have been prevented. But guilt is a luxury we cannot afford. I spent months torturing myself with what-ifs and should-haves. What if I'd driven to Denver sooner? Should I have hired a private investigator years ago? The truth is, predators like Storm count on our self-doubt. They weaponize our desire to be reasonable, understanding, non-interfering. My guilt served no purpose except to delay my action. The moment I transformed that guilt into determination was the moment I began saving my son. For those trapped in similar situations, and statistics suggest there are millions suffering in silence, please know that escape is possible. The human spirit, even when chemically suppressed and psychologically shattered, maintains a core that yearns for truth. River's attempt to call me, even while believing I was dead, shows that love leaves fingerprints on our souls that no amount of manipulation can completely erase. Recovery isn't linear. River still has nightmares where he believes I'm a ghost. He sometimes panics when he can't immediately reach me, terrified that Storm's lies might somehow retroactively become true. He checks his food obsessively, refuses any medication unless he's personally picked it up from the pharmacy, and struggles with trust. But he's also laughing again, planning a return to work, and slowly learning that not everyone who claims to love him wants to own him. To the Storms of this world. And yes, you're reading this because predators always monitor their victims' stories. We see you now. Your tactics are being exposed. Your victims are finding their voices. The very technology you use to isolate and control is becoming a tool for connection and verification. River's story isn't unique, and as more survivors speak up, your hunting grounds shrink. For families currently fighting this battle, build your army. Grace, Marcus, Mrs. Chen, Dr. Martinez, none of them had to help us, but they recognized evil when they saw it and stood against it. Don't fight alone. Involve lawyers, doctors, neighbors, friends. Predators thrive in isolation and wither under scrutiny. The more eyes watching, the harder it becomes for them to operate.
Most importantly, never give up. There were moments when I sat in that rental car, rejected and heartbroken, when surrender seemed logical. Storm had legal documents, medical authority, and 5 years of manufactured reality on her side. I had nothing but a mother's conviction that her child needed her. But that conviction, that primal certainty, proved stronger than all her lies. River asked me recently if I thought he was weak for falling for Storm's manipulation. I told him what I'll tell you now. Trusting someone who claims to love you isn't weakness, it's human. The weakness lies in those who exploit that trust, who see love as a tool for control rather than a gift to cherish. River's capacity to trust, even after everything, isn't a flaw to be fixed, but a strength to be protected and guided. As I finished this, River just texted me a photo from his apartment. He's cooking dinner, a simple pasta dish, but his smile reaches his eyes for the first time in years. He's not fully healed. Storm's sisters still send occasional messages, though law enforcement is closing in on them. The shadow of those lost years will always linger. But he's free. He's alive. He knows he's loved. To every parent reading this, your love matters more than you know. Your instincts are valid. Your concerns aren't paranoia, and your refusal to give up might be the light that guides your child home through their darkest night. To every survivor, you're not crazy. It wasn't your fault. And yes, you can rebuild. And to my River, if you're reading this, you came back to me against impossible odds. You fought through chemical fog and manufactured memories to find your way home. You're the strongest person I know, and I'm honored to be your mother. Love doesn't always conquer all, but armed with truth, supported by community, and fueled by determination, it stands a fighting chance. Sometimes that's enough to save a life.